Last year, for instance, we processed about 11.5 billion naira in payroll for everybody. This year, middle of the year, we've done almost 16 billion. The number one skill that you need to make it in life is no other thing than sales.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who can sell stuff. I'm one step away from anybody in Nigerian tech. If you want to build any technology company, you need somebody who can build it again. If you start out by paying somebody to build it, it's usually not sustainable. Startup in Nigeria is very high highs and very low lows, right? Yeah, we're not looking for talent in Africa. We have it,
Actually,
right? I know how to create a future in your mind and get you to commit to it. I'm a product of my environment. I went to 3 primary schools and 3 secondary schools. I can very easily create a new relationship and maintain that relationship. My wife believes in me 100%. We suffered. We drank a lot of gari.
literally.
Yeah. There was a time that we were down to 0. You have to be very intentional.
Hello everybody, and once again, welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneurs Connect Show. As always, what we do here is interview African entrepreneurs to learn about their journeys, their stories, their successes, their failures, and everything in between. And as always, we have special guests in the house. Today, we have another special guest in the house. His name is Mr. Seye. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming on the pod. I mean, the notice was not so long, but you honored it. I'm very, very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
That's okay. I'm always looking for opportunities to tell my story.
Awesome. Are you ready? Can we dive right in right now?
Sure.
Beautiful. All right, welcome on the show once again. Let's start by you telling us what growing up was like.
Okay, that far back. I mean, growing up, so I was born in Lagos.
Okay.
Let me not say the period. I was born in Lagos.
Yeah.
And then spent my first 5 years of my life in Lagos. But my dad was older, right? My dad had me when he was already 54 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I think he retired a year after I was born. So his own idea after that first 5 years of my life, living in Lagos for 5 years, he was like, you know what? He wants to move to a quieter city that is not as hustle and bustle as Lagos. I wonder what he would say now if he could see what Lagos is like now. So he moved us to Ibadan, right? Moved to Ibadan. Ibadan at that time was like a university town, right? So it was more about academics, professors, scholars, and all of that. We lived in the GRA. And then, I started to go to school and doing all that. My dad, like I said, being older, he was not really into all the things of my generation, like video games and cartoons and all that stuff. He just wanted us to read books. So we didn't have like cable TV or any kind of TV, to be honest. We just used to listen to news on the local stations, and then we spent all the rest of our time either playing football downstairs or reading. He had a big library of books, and anytime we said we were bored, he would go and bring a book for us and say, read this book, and when you are done reading it, let me know what you learned from it. So that was most of my childhood, just reading books and very boring stuff. So in school, when people want to talk about Spider-Man and this and that, me, I'm going to tell you about Chino Achebe, Cyprian Wole Soyinka, even Robinson Crusoe, Robin Hood, all those kind of books and everything. So
did you see that as punishment at the time?
Yes, I did. I hated it. So I used to be vexed, like, why can't this man just buy me video games, right? Why am I reading books all the time? But later in life, I now realized the advantage that gave me. It allowed me to have a very curious mind. And I still say till today that curiosity is the bedrock of genius, right?
Curiosity is the bedrock of genius.
Yes. If you look at this light in front of you now and see that, okay, what is powering this light? Is it tungsten? Is it fluorescent? A lot of people are not curious to ask those questions. But when you are, by virtue of consuming so much knowledge from when you were a kid, it helps you know stuff. And when you know stuff, you can do stuff, right? So, So when I finished primary school, I went to 3 primary schools. My dad kept moving me because he didn't want his retirement savings to finish. So anytime they increase school fees in one school or the other, he'll say, you know what, we can't afford this school again. Let's move to a new school. So I went to 3 primary schools and 3 secondary schools.
What was that like? Changing friends?
You get, it was, but again, now in hindsight, it made me realize the advantage that gave me. So today, I can very easily create a new relationship and maintain that relationship just because of that background of spending 2 years in one school, creating my own friends, having my own friends, and then I'm uprooted from that and put into a new environment and I have to all over again, okay, find who are going to be my guys and things like that. So I did that 3 times in primary school, 3 times in secondary school. So it's now like second nature now. And then I went to uni in Abeokuta. And then when I finished uni, I went to Abuja.
What did you study in school?
I studied agric science.
Agric science?
Yes. I wanted to be, so, okay.
Yeah.
Spotlight in my childhood was that at some point during my childhood, my uncle gave me one of his old computers, a Windows 98 computer desktop. So I was very grateful for that because, you know, I was interested in computers and electronics and video games and stuff. So I used to take that computer apart and put it back together. So even my mother was working in a bank, and on some days when I'm out of school, she would take me to the bank with her. And the bankers, so at that time, the internet was a new concept, right? Not everybody had access to the internet. So in the bank, my mom was assistant manager. And so there were just 3 people who had access to the internet in the bank. My mom, her boss, the manager, and somebody called, I think, the head of operations. So to occupy me, they would give me one non-functional computer, like a computer that nobody was manning. And before you knew it, I was able to connect that computer to the internet. I went to copy the IP and TCP connections from my mom's computer, and then I connected that one. So all the bankers were fascinated. I was like 9 years old or 10 years old, like, this guy is a whiz kid.
What year was this?
Okay, you're trying to figure out my age. That was 97, 98. So they used to be very excited to say my mom should bring me to the office so that I could connect their computers to the internet.
So everybody wants to get access to the internet now.
Yeah. So eventually, my uncle gave me that old computer that I spoke about. And then, so at that time, I everybody thought I was going to be a computer scientist. Ejekushe computer science, let him go and read computer science in school. So I tried to get into university and they gave me agric science. And I didn't want to do it. In fact, by 200 level, I used my pocket money to go and buy another JAMB form and wrote another JAMB. But I got admission to FUTA and my mom was not willing to let me go to Akure because I used to get sick a lot. So she wanted me in close proximity to Ibadan. So anyway, I did agric science begrudgingly for 5 years in Abeokuta. And by 2011, I went to do my NYC in Abuja. And that's where I met Lekon, who is my current co-founder of this company. And he was a software developer. Fortunately, I was in the realm of computers again. And I started to learn how to use all these programs. I learned how to use AutoCAD in 3 weeks. At that time, I was working in a company that used to do government projects for land information systems. So you had to do like data entry, data creation, GIS analysis. So I became a GIS analyst in 1 year, right? And I did that for about 4 years. Then the project dried up. There was change of government. I think Yaradua to good luck or something. Yeah. No, that was by 2013 or so. So I'd done this for 3-4 years. By 2014, I relocated back to Lagos and started working in e-commerce. So I joined a company at that time called Deal Day. Rose very quickly, became manager of strategy and planning in about 6 to 7 months. Then I started to move a lot. I moved to VConnect. I moved to a company called Yes Mobile. Yes Mobile got acquired by Udala. So my journey had now started to move away from like GIS analysis. I was now into strategy, marketing, strategic planning and marketing. So after moving around, I moved to Yes Mobile, a company like Slot. They were on the island only. They used to sell mobile electronics, phones and stuff. I became their head of e-business. Then they got acquired by Udala. Then I became head of marketing at Udala. And then Udala acquired Konga and I became head of marketing at Konga. So that's long story short.
That's what your journey looked like.
Yes.
So would you say like, are you a born entrepreneur or did like the circumstances around you push you into entrepreneurship?
So funny enough, again, when I look back in time, it looks like I was a born entrepreneur, but I didn't learn it from anybody, right? My mom was a banker. My dad was a retired engineer, right? So it's not like I could see somebody. Well, my mom had a provisional store that when she finished from work, she would go. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something. I just wanted to be more than what my environment said I should be. So, but even in uni, by the end of 100 level, I started thinking of what I could do. So I started to publish. Okay, back then I used to write a lot because of all these books I've been reading. So I also used to try and write my own books and articles and stuff. So by the end of 100 level, I started writing about the university experience. I had all these articles on my computer. And then I started to publish a magazine, a campus journal in school. So to get some like mass appeal within the school, I used to go to all the parties, all the club parties and stuff like that, take pictures, add it to all the articles I'd written. Then I'll come to Lagos, print it. It was called Show Off Magazine. I still have some old copies in my drawer. And I started to sell it inside school. So I became very, very popular in UNAB. If you just go to UNAB today, or anybody who was in UNAB, or what they call FUNAB today, at that time, and say, do you know Show Off? That was me. So I did that for the entire stay. I only stopped doing it in final year because it was really affecting my grades. And I didn't want to graduate with a pass, or a third class. So I stopped it and faced my studies in the last 2 years, and I was able to graduate with a decent grade. By the time I also started working, I also had learned how to do a bunch of stuff. I could build websites on WordPress and stuff like that. So just after I left Deal Day, I started a company with my friend called Jekama.com. It was like a coupon-based business as well. We ran it for just maybe about 4 or 5 months. We did some volume, but we didn't have enough money to run that business, so we shut that down. So, I'd always tried my hands at stuff, right? So by the time I had gone around working all of these organizations, I reconnected with Lekon, who I met in 2011 on a trip to Abuja, and he was like, Seye, man, I think we can. I understand that the tech industry is booming now. I think we should try and build something of our own.
Just like that?
Yeah. So the experience I'd had in all of these companies combined into... So initially what we wanted to build was employee engagement software, right? So I'd seen businesses like that in Europe and North America that just allowed employees to be able to express themselves to their management or to their organizations. And I wanted to build something like that for Africa. But Africa had its own peculiarities, and we just decided that, okay, to be able to achieve that amount of, to be able to build that as a business, we have to start from HR software. So that's how I found myself building HR software.
Is Paid the first HR software you built?
Yes. Before then, we built hotel management software. Okay. Myself and Lekon.
How many things have you and Lekon done?
Not a lot. So he was my guy, right? He was like my brother. People thought in the where we were working, they thought we had known each other from childhood because we just had the same.
There's somebody like can bounce your ideas off, and
and it's much older than me. But because he could build software, right? That's very important. Even today, if you want to build any technology company, you need somebody who can build the idea. If you start out by paying somebody to build it, it's usually not sustainable. So the first thing we did was hotel management software.
That's a golden lesson there for anybody that's trying to go into tech. Actually.
Absolutely, yes. Even if you are trying to join an accelerator or an early investor, that's one of the most important questions that they ask. That who is going to build this thing? Is it you,
have somebody else,
or do you have somebody else? And not somebody that you are paying money to. Somebody who is as invested in it as you are. It's usually a very big advantage for companies that are going to make it. So it wasn't Paid wasn't the first thing we tried to do together, but it was the one that hopefully worked.
Interesting. So what would you call yourself? Now, for some people I interview, they say, oh, I'm a marketer, or I'm a web developer, or I'm a trader. But your trajectory
is very eclectic.
Played in a lot of places. So you say, oh, Seye, who are you? What would you define yourself as?
I'm a marketer, a seller. I sell stuff, right? I've crystallized all my skills into that. I'm the guy who can sell stuff. And not just selling product, right? I sell you an idea. I sell you a vision. I sell you a future that we are trying to create. And then I will sell the product as well. So I think the nexus of the focal point of all my skills is that I'm able to convince people to join me to do things. Even if it's just to solve a problem that you have or to help me build a future that I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
I sell stuff.
Do you agree that sales is like the most important skill anybody should have?
Absolutely. If you check my Twitter, I recently, maybe a few weeks ago, I put out a tweet where I said, and people started picking the Twitter. I'm going to write think pieces about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I said, the number one skill that you need to make it in life is no other thing than sales.
Yeah.
Right? I can't remember the examples I gave, but that was the point. Like, you may know how to build stuff. You may inherit wealth from your parents or something. But for you to make it in life, you need to be able to sell. You need to be able to create something that people cannot see now. And by committing their resources to you, whether it's their time, their energy, or their money, that future becomes created, right? So, yeah. I don't have a tattoo. My bio on Twitter is Ego Creosum, which means I create, therefore I am. It's like the focal point of everything.
Is this tattoo you have?
Yes, it's the tattoo I have here.
Oh.
So by creating that future, by creating that vision and selling it to people, that's how you're going to get by.
How did you learn sales?
How did I learn sales?
Were you reading book, or is it something that you started doing by learning and learning by doing?
I mean, it goes back as far back as this magazine I said I was publishing in school. I didn't have any money, right? I had a friend who had means or a bit of resources.
Yeah.
And all he wanted to do was to go to clubs, go to parties and all of that. All the, clubs. I don't know if you know those things in school where they say they have a club. Trying to invite him to do stuff. And I said, hey, I'm trying to create something, right? I'm trying to create something that documents our time in this school. I looked around at the time. There was no informal publication that belonged to the students that made sense. So I was able to sit the guy down, convince him, and he committed his resources to building that project at the time. And that's how it has always been, right? So it's now that I can look back and say, okay, how do I, summarize my journey and say, what is the thing that is constant that I've been able to do repeatedly over time that creates a future for me? And so it was that sales. And then I just decided to continue getting better at it.
So you've played in different sectors, right now, built different businesses and all of that. What's that thing that drives you to keep doing stuff?
So, first of all, I usually say that I'm a product of my environment, right? No matter how much you read, how much exposure you get, how many places you travel to, the characteristics of where you are born, where you grow, where you came from, they have an impact on your life.
Sure.
So I'm born Nigerian, born African. So the first thing that I can try to impact is that same Africa. And I can now just tailor it to where I have my own strengths or where I'm opportune or destined by God to play. So Africa is the world's youngest population. And by that, it means that we have the biggest potential for growth on the globe. I usually say to people, why do you think there is no immigration program from any African country? No, but Canada is looking for how to get the best talent out of Africa and move them into Japan has, Canada, UK has all of those things. We're not looking for talent in Africa. We have it.
Actually,
right? And that's because those populations are aging populations. Japan is one of the oldest populations in the world. Same thing with UK. Same thing with Canada. Canada, they even have a problem. They are only occupying like less than 1/3 of their landmass. So they need people in their country. But you see that the programs are specifically designed to fish out the best talent from Africa.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to flip it, right? And say, why can't we use our own talent to develop Africa, our own domain? And that is my driving force. right? I'm fortunate to have 2 kids now who, by virtue of my own work, can become citizens of any other country, right? I can decide to make enough money to go and buy a passport, or relocate and embed them into that new society so that they become parts of those society, but they will never not be African.
Yeah.
Right? So my biggest driving force is that I want to contribute my own quota to developing Africa to become a functional, successful population in the history of the world. That's what I want to do. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean, but I want to do it.
What would you say is the biggest risk you have taken ever?
Leaving paid employment. I mean, there are other things, but that one is a bit profound because I left paid employment immediately my first daughter was born.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was crazy because...
How did you navigate that?
Right? At that time, I was head of marketing of Conga. I was well paid. But I knew that I wanted to do more than than being like a career guy who just worked in this organization for so many years.
Yeah.
I wanted to create stuff. Like I said, my driving force is to create and sell stuff. So it was very specific at the time because I knew that if I stayed at that job for 1 more year, I'll become dependent on that job so that I can provide for my family. So it was a big bet that within the next 2 years, before this girl starts school, I need to make it, right? I need to.
I'm imagining what your wife's reaction was.
Yeah.
When...
My wife believes in me 100%.
Oh,
so she knows that if she ever puts his mind to something, so she wasn't scared at all. I mean, we suffered in those 2 years, right? We drank a lot of gari.
Literally.
Yeah. There was a time that we were down to 0.
Oh.
Yeah. And, being a woman who has a kid, she will get frustrated at times. But I just had to, like I said, my job, I know how to create a future in your mind and get you to commit to it. So my wife is the first recipient of that, unfortunately for her.
You were sold at this point.
Yes. Yeah. So in that period, I had to take that decision and say, okay, I need to stop working for people right now. I can't delay it. And taking a bet that in the next 15 to 24 months, I should have created something valuable enough to support the kind of life that my family has to live and the future that I want to create. So it was a big risk, and I'm grateful that, it's still working right now.
So, book smart or street smart, which do you think has helped you so far? Is it book smart, is street smart, or is it like a mix of both?
I mean, it's a combination of both. I wasn't as street smart as most people would want to be. But fortunately, you can learn that, right? Sure. You can learn it as you go through life. In fact, till today, there are still some street smart qualities that I don't have. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a story. So book smart, I was opportune to have that because of my childhood and background. But street smartness, I had to learn with my experiences in life. And I've been fortunate to have people beside me, like my wife, for instance, very street smart. There was a day we're driving to a remote part of Lagos at mile 2, or is it mile 12? There were those guys who will come and knock at your window and say they want to, they're begging for stuff. And I was like, because we're having a discussion at the time, so my attention was focused on her. And the guy started to knock the window that's calling my attention. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Why is this guy knocking my window? So I was about to wind down my window to talk to him. And my wife was like, Seye, don't do that. They are going to snatch your necklace if you do that. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Right? So if she wasn't there, I probably would have, wind down the glass and would have take my chain. So yeah, fortunate. So now, if it happened to me again, I don't let them.
Yeah, but like navigating like the startup terrain and all of that, do you think you need a bit of like
street smartness? Yes, absolutely, yes. Fortunately, I've done it for about 3-4 years now. So I have enough experiences to be able to call things from the beginning. Even in negotiating, you go into a deal with an entity and somebody is trying to, outsmart you. You need to be able to know when to play the Nigerian card. You need to know when to be able to call somebody and say, hey, bro, what are you doing this evening? Let me buy you drinks at this place. You go there, you lock that loophole, and especially B2B. For us to conclude a deal, most times, you have so many decision makers that you have to convince to be on your side, especially if it's a large company. So you need a lot of street smartness to be able to navigate everybody to be on your side. Is very hard work. So
True.
you need it a lot. Yeah.
True. And you know, in like business, you need like a network. People usually say your network is your network, right?
Yeah.
Building relationships is very important. What's your approach to networking and building relationships?
You have to be very intentional. You have to be very intentional without necessarily being like a leech, right? You need to be able to maintain relationships, and you need the participants of those relationships to know your value as well, right? So today, I'm fortunate to be able to, I keep saying I'm at least one step away from anybody in Nigerian tech, right? And that's because I put my value on the table first before just that platonic relationship. I'm not the guy that just wants to go out and have drinks with you for no reason, right? We're having a valuable discussion towards something that you and I can benefit from at any point in time. So yeah, for people, you have to be intentional about cultivating those relationships. You have to know how to, without being a nuisance, make sort of friends with people.
You want to give us an example? How do you do it yourself?
I'll give you an example. About 5 years ago, I was I had an agency business, and I met somebody, right? He called me. He wanted to provide some type of service to us. At that time, we didn't need that service. Okay. But I did not want to just like turn him down and say, you know what, don't bother, don't stress me. Right? So I spoke to him, I called him, right? After he sent in his email and everything, I called him and said, hey, I like what you are doing, but I'll be honest with you, we are not at a place where we can collaborate right now. But I like it. Continue what you are doing, blah, blah, blah. And he called me back. I didn't even know that he was a chairman. He was a big boy. So he called me back, Ashe, I like the way you responded to my email. What are you doing this evening? So we went out, we had a drink, and I told him about the things that I wanted to do. He also told me about the things he was working on. 2 or 3 years later, when I told him that I'm leaving paid employment to go and build stuff, he said, Share, whatever it is you want to do, I want to be involved. He was the guy that wrote the first check into our current company.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, that's an example.
So what would you say has been like your biggest win since you started like doing business and playing in the business space?
It's very difficult to pin it down to one thing.
Yeah.
Right? My biggest win, there's a series of wins. Startup in Nigeria is wins and very high highs and very low lows, right?
Yes.
So there are some days you're like, man, I'm tired. I want to give up on this thing. I just want to stop it. And there are other times you are so ecstatic, you are so happy.
Yeah.
It's a contribution of many things. In recent times, very recent times, like as recent as 3 or 4 weeks ago, we are now having conversations with organizations that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I used to look at them like, bro, this is a massive company, right? These guys are dependent on products that we built and built from scratch. And, we are like in the same conversations.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Last year, for instance, we processed about 11.5 billion naira in payroll for everybody. This year, middle of the year, we've done almost 16 billion, right? So we've almost doubled our volumes from last year.
Yeah.
So, just being able to look at something that you and somebody decided to do and commit your lives to become a real company that affects people's lives positively, it's a big win for me, right? Whatever happens right now, I'm very grateful that we built the company and the experiences that we've had while building it.
How do you measure success?
Yeah, it's just that the number of lives that you're able to impact positively. That's it for me, right? There are 480 million people in formal jobs in Africa. Today, we have about 15,000 people on our own platform. So, Just imagine that difference, 15K people to 480 million people on the continent. The impact we're trying to make is significant on that number. And it's not just providing services to them, it is impacting their lives positively. So at my company, our vision statement or mission statement is we are simplifying the world of work so that the lives of the African worker can be improved. That is where the success is. I'm not just looking for people to use my products. I'm looking for people to be positively impacted by the experience of using my products.
Yeah.
Right? We have a product or a feature on our platform called Earned Wage Access.
Okay.
Earned Wage Access allows you to access a portion of your salary before payday. So if you earn 300K, for instance, divided by 30, that means you earn 10,000 naira a day. So at the end of day one, on your mobile app, you see that you've earned 10K. If you want 5K, withdraw it. You have that. You have that money instantly. You don't need to ask your HR. You don't need to do anything. And one of the experiences, one of the reasons why we built that product, before we had that particular feature, people or organizations can extend salary advances to their employees via the platform. So one day, one guy in one company, he asked for a salary advance and his request was declined. And he wrote an email to his manager or to his HR admin, but he copied us. He copied our system email by mistake. And it was such a painful email, right? He was like, why can't you give me this money? I need this money now because he wanted to buy, I think, drugs or food for his kid or something like that. That this money, I've worked for it, right? Why can't I access this money now? Why do I have to wait till the end of the month? Do you know if my child will still even be alive at that time? That singular experience, when we launched the product, right? That guy, whenever he needs money now, because we have all the access to the back end, he just goes, takes money, and he knows that at the end of the month, he'll get whatever is left of his salary. So his life has been positively impacted because he no longer, first of all, has to go through, hoops and jumps to access money. And the instantness, if there's a word like that, of him accessing financial solutions or financial resources to help him make his life better is what we're trying to deliver to a significant amount or significant population on the continent.
Beautiful. This is a good place to tell us about Paid and what you guys do.
Yeah, Paid is HR company, very boring company, right?
I mean, this thing you talked about now doesn't look like something that is boring. Anymore.
Right? Yeah. I told you I'm very good at selling stuff. So Paid is HR software to simplify work and improve the lives of the people that are working. Basically, the idea of it is that we've built tools that help organizations like manage their people processes. So you can do onboarding, all the boring stuff, right? To be honest, it's the boring part of work that we've built tools to automate. Because really, people shouldn't spend their time on documentation and onboarding and preparing payroll, something that you're going to do every month. Is a repetitive task. So you need software that will just automate that. And then you just do the little human interaction that you need to do and go and do your actual strategic work. Like, okay, figuring out how to make more money, right? So we've built solid software to take care of that base of people operations management and so on and so forth. Now, because we've built such a good base, we now have the opportunity to build other stuff on top of it, right? So financial services, savings and investments, rent support, USD payouts, and all of that. So today, by virtue of using our product, a barbershop, for instance, who pays his employees in Naira, right, can pay his employees, and those employees decide to receive that money in US dollars.
Oh,
right?
Nice.
Because of cost of living, currency fluctuations, and all of that. He can just from his app say, as soon as I receive this money, convert it to USD at the current rates. And he's building his savings like that, hedging against inflation or whatever, and so on. The CBN shouldn't hear this part, by the way. But it's not illegal in any way because it's consensual. The guy has to agree to do it because again, he's buying it at the current prevalent rates, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So that's what Paid really is, and we currently provide services to about 150 Nigerian businesses or African businesses.
Nice.
But we're expanding into the UK and North America as well later this year. And, basically just trying to get as many Black-owned businesses, African businesses to be able to use our products and help the lives of the African workers.
That's beautiful. Now, as a business owner and employer of labor right now, what's your approach to hiring? What traits do you look out for in people before you say, oh, this person is fit to be part of the team?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, it's curiosity. Unfortunately, and don't quote me, but one of the things that I value the most when I interview somebody is how curious is this person's mind. And the reason, don't quote me, but the quality of education we get in Africa isn't significantly high.
Yeah.
Right? But the people who are going to change the continent are this continent right now. So just basically need to be able to identify them. There are people who are systemic employees, if there's something like that, like somebody who you just put into a particular role, a role that has already been figured out, right? Even if you're working in Chevron, Mobile, wherever, Unilever, Dangote. So some people can be selected from the labor market and kept in a role that has already been figured out. You need to receive this number of documents in one day, stamp them, sign on them, and then pass them along into a process. Or there are other types of employees who figure stuff out, right? When you're building a startup, it's the second guy that you need, the guy who figures stuff out, the guy who is able to say, yes, I understand that my role is marketing and I need to get word out about this company. However, can I speak to the guys in product and say, hey, if you are able to, based on the customer information or customer feedback that I've received, I think we should build this or edit this build or, do this and that. Same thing with sales or same thing with customer support or whatever. That's the type of guy you need. So when I want to hire, for instance, last year, my best performing salesman, when I hired him, he didn't have a job and he wanted to do community management, right? But when I spoke to him and, kind of queried his mind, I realized, okay, bro, you're going to work in sales and I think you're going to do well in sales. And he did, right?
What's one advice that you give to entrepreneurs, people that are trying to build businesses that most of them don't just seem to get?
Usually say don't do it. It's very simple and it's contextual to technology, right? Because I do not do, I can't give general business advice. I don't think I have enough experience yet. But in technology, most people usually they get carried away with all the things that is reported in tech and say, oh, this business raised money, blah, blah, blah. My advice is you have to be sure that your business is an actual business before you decide to scale it, right? And by scaling it is what people do, like, okay, I want to raise money, I want to get investors. In today's world, your idea has to have turned into a business. So what that means is that you have built a usable version and you found customers, people who can pay you to use that product, right? So that when you want to raise funds or get investors, is that you want to accelerate something that is already existing. Most people think they can go out and raise funds when the business is not yet making money. It's not yet a business, right? So any other thing is extraneous. Any PR, any whatever you're doing. The key focus when you want to go out or set up a business is you have to make it an actual business. You have to find willing customers who are going to pay you money to use your products. You've done that on a clearly repeatable cycle, then you can now accelerate. That's really what everybody should focus on in the early days.
And what's your approach to saving and investing?
Saving what?
Money.
I mean,
what else can you save?
You can save time. Again, you have to respect the environment that you're operating in, right? I heard a story of a startup recently that was paying themselves more than what even established founders in San Francisco and profitable markets like America and the UK were paying themselves.
Yeah.
You have to respect the environment that you're in and the people who have invested in your business. You have to keep it reasonable, right? I don't see why you are paying yourself $100,000 a year in Africa, in Nigeria, where you can live a decent life with considerably less than that.
Yes, true.
So I mean, people should stop seeing it as a means to a luxurious life. You have to deliver value to your investors before that luxury is going to come. And if you are focused on that goal and continue just being, prudent and frugal, you eventually get there. When you return value to your investors, you can do whatever you like. You can buy Gulfstream or Bombardier. And as long as it's your money, it's value that you have created, you can live whatever kind of life you want to live. But on investor funds, please make it easy for other people to be able to gain investor confidence, right?
Yeah. Because the thing that's happened in the startup space now is crazy. In the last 2-3 years, the number of people that have gone under, the number of people that have misappropriated funds, and all of that. I think investors are being very careful. A lot of extra due diligences.
Yeah, the last investor that I was able to fund us, we went through like 10 weeks of due diligence,
Crazy.
Right? Interviews, checking out, okay, blah, blah. In the earlier days, it was much easier. That's because they still even had a willingness to invest. Other people are just like, hey, you know what, I'm going to hold on. And if you see the trend of investment coming into Africa now, especially African tech, is on the decline from the past 2 years.
Well, my last question for you is, what are you still trying to figure out? Now, context is, a lot of people see interviews like this and shows like this, and they're like, these people, they're inspiring me, they have everything about themselves figured out, and all of that. But this is an attempt to bring out the human side, What is Seye still trying to figure out right now?
A lot of stuff. I tweet my experience every day. If you follow my Twitter, you will know.
I see. I stumbled on Twitter.
On the days that I'm struggling, I will talk about it. And on the days that we are knocking it out of the park, I'll also talk about it. What we are trying to figure out right now is how to grow multilaterally. Most people fall into the trap of growing only unilaterally, and that takes a lot of energy from you.
You almost simplify that a little for most of the people watching.
Yeah. So what I was getting there. So multilaterally means we're a B2B business, right?
Yeah.
And the easiest, the simplest way to understand how we make money is when another business subscribes to our services. Now, what we want to do is we have introduced multiple revenue streams into that conversation such that we make more money per sale, per organization. So what ancillary services can we provide? How can we extend services to the employees of that business? And then the business still continues to renew their services, right? So I read a report about a company doing similar to what we do in Canada, who with about 86 customers made about $15.5 million in revenue in one quarter.
Crazy.
We have way more customers and we are doing like a fraction of that figure, even in a year. So Africa is poor. Yes, we get it. But we have to find a way to extract that value. And not just by, shafting customers, it's by providing value to them. So that's one of the things that keeps us up at night. Like, okay, we've built great products, right? But if you put it in the hands of people that simply cannot afford it, you'll struggle. You'll struggle to make money. So that's why we're also considering expanding, with the same software base into profitable markets or, markets with bigger disposable income so that you can make more money with the same resources that you have. And then generally in life, what I am still trying to figure out is, I told you I have a life's mission, right? Is huge. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. And this is just basically, I'm talking about delivering Africa to its potential, right? Or playing my own part to help deliver Africa to its potential. That keeps me going. That keeps me up at night, especially because I now have my version 2 and version 3, or version 2, my kids, who are growing and seeing what I do, and what you do is going to become their reality. So I don't want to let them down. I want to be able to at least achieve a good percentage of my life's goals so that they have an easier life. So yeah, if you're thinking about what I'm still trying to figure out, is along those lines.
What does being a father feel like?
Bro, he has his days, man. There are some. It's like running a startup. Very high highs, very low lows. But the most challenging thing about fatherhood or parenthood for me is that there's no break. That's what I tell people. It's great.
There's
It's
no
a
holiday.
lovely job, but you cannot go on leave. You cannot sign out. You have to be there, be responsible, be present every day for the rest of your life. You are not going to get home and something is wrong with your kid, or your kid needs some type of support, and you say, you know what, I've had a rough day, let's do this at another time. No, you have to do it at that time.
Yeah.
So that's the most challenging thing. Before, I used to be like my parents and say, you know what, you guys should have kids, you guys should do this. But now I'm like, bro, do it at your own time, when you know that you have enough to pour into that kid's life, to help them become good members of society. Because if you take stock of the kind of people we have in our society, we need a lot of grooming. We need a lot of training.
Sure.
I'm fortunate to have 2 girls. Girls don't have it as easy, right? There's this, there's gender imbalance. They have so many struggles ahead of them already. So you have to contribute to helping them, achieve their own potential without too many drawbacks that society already places on them for being female.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you tell them to subscribe to the channel, by the way?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Seye Bandele, co-founder and CEO at PaidH. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Entrepreneurs Connect show on YouTube. Thank you.
Subscribe, guys. Subscribe. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope to do this another time. Maybe we even have like a group session with more founders, and then we'll have like very, very good conversations where it doesn't even feel like an interview.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. All right, guys. See you on the next episode of the Entrepreneurs Connect show. Take care of yourself and cheers.